I'm Katie Griffith with Bright Solutions, and this is the bright side of AI. And I'm so excited to have my friend Dillon Painter here with us again today to talk about AI in the future. And today I'm just excited because we're going to be talking about the future, like what's coming down the pike as much as we can predict because things are changing every day and it's happening so fast. So I think it's going to be a really fun conversation. Dillon, thank you so much for joining us again. And if you want to just quickly introduce yourself for folks that didn't see our last episode
Mhm.
together.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie, for having me on. I'm very excited to chat with you again today. My name is Dillon Painter. My title is a project manager with Priority Life Care, which by nature of that title is very ambiguous. And in particularly, one of my focus areas is technology and AI and how, as an organization, how we're thinking about it and how we're implementing it now and into the future.
Great. And you all are doing incredible things. You're really moving forward from an innovation perspective. And I just am so impressed at how you continuously innovate at a sustainable pace. A lot of people get going and they do some really cool things, but then they're kind of tired or they lose momentum. But you're able to keep that momentum alive without burning out your teams or your organization or your funds. So I just really am impressed with the way that you have managed that for so long there. But let's get right into it. I'm reading about so many new things coming out with AI, and it's so exciting. And it's just like, what are all the things that are going to what is this going to look like in the future? We're doing things today and it's really incredible, but just looking like a few years down the road, I'm just mesmerized. One of the things that I saw recently was a video of humanoid robotics, these two humanoid robots working together to sort out groceries. It's by Helix. And so you can look up the video, but it's really incredible the dexterity and how these humanoid robots are able to like sort out these groceries and actually work together as well. So one of them was unpacking fruit and the other robot noticed and pushed the fruit bowl over to that robot. I mean, it's just indicative of how these agents and these AI solutions are going to be able to start working more and more autonomously and working together. I also saw Duke University said today that they were able to create robots very quickly using text. So, text to robot is what they're calling it, where they create robots with simple text inputs. So, the technology has advanced so quickly where the robots are cheaper to make. And then to make them do things is so simple. Like, let me just write a prompt and then I'm just going to create this robot that can do things. So what are your thoughts or what are some of the things that you're just like are
Mhm.
blowing your mind for what's to
Yeah.
come?
Yeah, I think the first point I want to make there is the future is now, and it's happening faster than ever before. Things that we thought would take 20 years are developing now. And in the next 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years, there's going to be a presence. And I personally think that the humanoid robots you just described are poised to potentially redefine senior care, which is both exciting and also moderately scary when you think about just the capabilities that these humanoid robots will have. You mentioned the dexterity. I think there's a future state where robotics are administering medication in the same way a caregiver or someone in the care staff is doing that. I could see a caregiver, or excuse me, a robot being emotional support for a resident. One of the things that is a problem in senior living is social isolation. And so, could you deploy a robot to be with a resident and to provide that emotional support to them? I think is an interesting component to this. But overall, what we used to think was such a distant future is actually happening now. And I am very curious and intrigued to see how humanoid robots will penetrate and break into senior living because there's so many applications and there's so many use cases that could be incredibly positive, but at the same time, myself, I'm walking cautiously because I do think there's also some considerations, even ethical considerations, that organizations are going to have to think through before they make these decisions.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think, as always, especially in our industry, it is about who's going to be responsible, who's going to do the right thing, and being really thoughtful about that. And what are our standards here at our organization, or what are we willing to do and not willing to do? And how are we going to be responsible with, yeah, the sky's the limit, right? We can do anything. And so we could fully automate like it's a factory. And it's like, let's not be a factory. I do love the thought about the companionship, because I feel like that gets really scary for folks. But in my opinion, there's 24 hours in a day. Like, it's a long day for someone who is experiencing loneliness. So yes, we want to have that human component and we don't want to take that away and we want to maintain that. But in those in between moments, I think that there is a future where, whether it's a physical humanoid, or
Mhm.
there's a new solution out there, a new startup where it's just phone calls. And like the person knows that they're talking to an AI, but
Mhm.
it can have these wonderful conversations with folks, and it doesn't bring baggage like I do to my conversations.
Same.
And it doesn't get emotionally exhausted when my son asks me for something at 6 p.m. on a Thursday after a rough day. Like, my
Mhm.
response is gonna be a little different, maybe not exactly what I wanted it to be, as opposed
Mhm.
to like on Saturday morning when I'm feeling all fresh.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about like the EQ, the
Yeah.
consistent EQ that an AI could actually have. So a lot of questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just truly like the sky is the limit. But I hit on briefly, I do believe there's going to be challenges and considerations as robotics continue to scale. And I'll touch on a couple of those, like how I'm thinking about the future is first off, ensuring that these robotics or these humanoids are in fact very user friendly and they have very user friendly designs that can accommodate varying levels of both physical and mental or cognitive abilities. I think that's going to be really important. I don't see this being a one size cookie cutter fits all. There's going to be, or there's going to need to be a level of personalization involved. Katie, you and I talked about this, but balancing that automation with the preservation of human dignity and emotional connection, these will never replace a human. But to your point, in a 24-hour day, you leave the door open for a lot of time to be spent either in isolation or alone. So perhaps this could help fill in those gaps and supplement what we're doing as humans. I think that's an excellent use case. And then lastly, and especially important for organizations like mine, we're going to have to address any cost barriers, both investing in these types of technologies, but then on the flip side of that, how do we potentially make it accessible or make it an accessible solution to all socioeconomic groups of our residents if they are the ones to potentially bring in their own robots? These are some of the considerations that I think are important to think about as this continues to track into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I think that's such a critical point to remain at the forefront as we're looking at these things. And I think it seems like it starts expensive. And then after some time, we're able to make these solutions more cost effective. And so we're kind of almost like testing it out, getting the kinks worked out, but also waiting for the technology to become cheaper. And then also gaining some efficiencies so that we can then really deliver these solutions to the masses. I love your thoughts on equity there. It's
Mhm.
so important. And thinking about again those robots working together in the grocery situation, behind the scenes, like AI engines working together. I just think that that is where we're really going to revamp the way we work as well. I mean, we don't know what the admin office is going to look like in 5 years. But I think that's
Mhm.
where we're going to start to see agents able to work between multiple platforms. We try to integrate, we try to automate robotic process automation and things, but AI is really just going to make that so much easier that I think we're going to be able to just redesign our operations. And again, like, it doesn't mean we're getting rid of all the people, but it
Right.
does mean that we're gaining huge efficiencies and reducing costs and able to leverage our people for the unique skills and gifts that they have in doing meaningful work as opposed to redundant
Mhm.
administrative work.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely could not agree more with you on that point. I am also of the belief that AI driven agents or robotics will actually create more sustainable caregiving solutions that will actually empower staffs and support staffs in ways we can't currently.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's exciting.
So with all this, looking at the AI landscape and startups, so there a proliferation of companies are coming at us, and it's only going to accelerate from here because of the investment dollars going into these companies and just being inundated with. I mean, we're gonna have robots everywhere, right? We're gonna have all these people like, look at what we have, look at what we have. So how do we even begin
Mhm.
to, approach this?
Yeah. A very foundational approach that I would consider implementing and something that I do is first and foremost, what solution are you trying to solve? What problem do you have that you believe a technology or leveraging AI can help you with? And a lot of operators like Priority Life Care, of course, we're looking for operational efficiency. We're looking for ways to deliver better and more customized experiences to our residents. These are the things that are important to us, but I do think each organization has to have what's important to them and what solutions they're trying to find, because that naturally starts to whittle down your pool because there is so much out there in there. And I get it. They're constantly knocking on your door. They want your business, but I think you need to know what you're trying to solve. And then secondly, understanding where you're at in this whole journey. So, Priority Life Care, we absolutely want to be on the forefront of innovation, but that does not mean we want to be the first to do certain things. And so, a lot of times we engage with these different companies and these different technology vendors, and I'm just very transparent with them. Hey, listen, I think your product is going to be great. I think you guys are great people, but I'm going to sit back and watch from afar, objectively review your proof of concept over the next couple years, and then I'd love to talk to you. That's just the stance we take is we want to get into partnerships with proven technologies, not the ones that are still trying to figure it out. And again, that is a personal approach that we take.
That's so smart. I love that. And yes, remaining in the driver's seat of what are we trying to accomplish, not what do these solution providers want to try to prove out, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And I love what you said earlier about the solution has to deliver value. Like, it has to be doing something that we really needed to do for us and creating these results. I was looking at Google announced the Bali, and it's like this robot, and it's like the shape of a ball, and it rolls around your house and it has like a video and audio, not video display, but it can video you, which is great, I guess. So I'm sitting
Yeah.
here looking at it and I'm thinking, obviously, all the privacy concerns like going off in
Mhm.
my head, but I'm like, okay, so what can this thing do? And it was like, oh, you can ask it how you look today and it can tell you,
Mhm.
give you advice on like, your outfit. And I was like, that is not something. I'm like, if it will
Yeah.
do my laundry, unload the dishwasher, cook me dinner, like, I'm kind of willing to invest in that. I will throw money at it. I will give up all my privacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're just gonna tell me how I look,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
gonna
And for some,
deliver
yeah,
value, right?
exactly. And for some people, the Bali or whatever is a value add to them. and they will invest their money and dollars into it, and more power to them.
Yeah.
That's where I think it's really important to understand what you're looking for from a value perspective. That's not something I would, and sounds like you either. But if you could expand on that and cook food and do all these other tasks that I would love not to do,
Right.
maybe. But yeah, as it stands, yeah, that's an interesting one.
Well, I'm excited for where you all are headed, and I so appreciate you spending time with us again. And any parting words, advice? I think you've given some really good advice
Yeah.
already. So
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice is if you're not thinking about the future when it comes to technology and AI, you're late. You needed to start doing that yesterday. So start thinking through what the future looks like at your organization or your company and start to compile what you're trying to solve. And that will help you narrow your focus on who you talk to. That'd be my biggest piece of advice.
great. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dylan.
Of course, thank you.
Great.